What? Never. Yusuf refused immediately. Do you even know what you're saying, Mom? You are asking me to marry someone I barely know. Also, I am just 18. This is not the age for my marriage. Come on. But, Hadi, look at this situation. That girl has become an orphan. All her relatives have left her. She is the only daughter of my late friend. At this time, I can't leave her alone, my child. Understand my situation. If you marry her, then I can take her with me to the USA. Otherwise, in what relationship can I take her with me? Although all of her relatives have left her, they have their eyes fixed on her wealth. I have convinced her greedy uncle with difficulty, my son. Please don't increase my difficulties. Besides, she is such a cute and innocent girl. I am sure in the future you will cherish my decision. Ramesa had come to Bangladesh for just 3 months to enjoy a nice vacation with her husband and son. During these holiday days, when she visited her village, she also met her childhood friend Rahila and Rahila's 15-year-old innocent daughter. Rahila's husband passed away due to an accident several years ago. Seeing Rahila, Ramesa felt a mix of sorrow and surprise. They were almost the same age, but poverty and loneliness seemed to have aged Rahila prematurely. However, when Ramesa saw Rahila's daughter, Masooma, she felt an instant affection for her. Masooma was truly as innocent as her name. She was as beautiful as her mother and had a different way of speaking compared to the other girls in the village. This was because of her mother, who had come from the city and was educated. Ramesa had always wished for a daughter. However, Allah had not destined that happiness for her. But now, seeing Masooma, Ramesa truly feels the desire for a daughter. Meeting Rahila again brought great happiness to Ramesa. She promised Rahila that they would meet again and showered Masooma with love before leaving, unaware that it would be the last time she saw her friend. Rahila's deceased husband's brother had been pressuring her to sell a piece of land they owned for a while. But when Rahila resisted, they resorted to threats. All these threats were aimed at Masooma. It was a turmoil that Rahila bore silently, but even the strongest among us can only endure so much. Despite enduring so much stress and threats, Rahila couldn't tolerate it anymore and left the world, entrusting her daughter to Allah's care. News of Rahila's passing reached Ramesa much later, while she was staying at a relative's house in Dhaka. Upon her return to the village, she was met with the shocking reality of her friend's demise. The weight of the news left her in a state of disbelief and grief, her emotions in a state of turmoil. However, as reality settled in, her focus shifted to Rahila's daughter, Masooma, a name that resonated with innocence. She reached the village and set her eyes on Masooma. Another shock awaited her. There, preparations were underway for Masooma's wedding to a man of 35 who had already driven his first wife to the point of death. Ramesa couldn't fathom tolerating such a situation. She promptly called the police to halt the wedding since Masooma was underage. She had already made up her mind to take Masooma with her to the USA. She knew that, without legal ties, she couldn't achieve this goal. Thus, she wished for a union between Hadi and Masooma, envisioning a pathway that would allow her to bring Masooma along. This decision found unwavering support from Rafiq as well. That's why she was now trying to convince her son, at least for the nikah. Mom, I am sorry. I am not a kind soul like you. I can't marry someone just out of sympathy. Most importantly, I can't marry a child. Hadi Yusuf declared his decision at once. He picked up his phone, walked to Ramesa, placed a kiss on her forehead, and left. Today he had plans to visit Jaflong with his cousins. Hadi is the only son, along with Ramesa Ali and Rafiq Yusuf. Also, being the smallest child in the entire family, he held the exclusive right to a mountain of affection. As a result, he had been spoiled and rotten since childhood. His parents gave him everything he wanted, and he never had to work for anything. This made him extremely selfish, curt, and arrogant. He barely acknowledged anyone beyond himself. Seeing Ramesa lost in thought, Rafiq approached her quietly and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "What are you contemplating now?" he asked gently. Ramesa smiled and replied, "I'm planning to convince your son." "Will he agree?" Rafiq inquired further. "Not only will he consent, but his father will also consent," Ramesa responded with unwavering confidence. Rafiq spoke with affection. "Love, his father has always been willing to listen to you. It's just your son who's stubborn." Ramesa smiled mischievously. "If you can't get what you want with honey, you have to use vinegar." When Hadi returned home after a great outing, he was feeling quite refreshed. It had been 3 days since he had come back home, and on this particular day, he found his house to be a place of intrigue. His mother, Ramesa, was lying down, weak and ill. Hadi had learned from his father that she hadn't eaten anything since his departure. Filled with worry, Hadi approached his mother, and his heart ached at the sight of her fragile state. Despite his arrogant, rude, and spoilt brat demeanor in the world, he had a deep affection for his parents. "Mama, what is this childishness?" Hadi asked, his voice laced with disbelief. Ramesa, her face pale and drawn, placed her hand over her eyes, trying to hide the tears that threatened to spill over. She had been dreading this conversation, but she knew she couldn't put it off any longer. Even after hearing Hadi's voice, she pretended not to notice, her heart pounding in her chest. "Mama, please." Hadi persisted, his voice soft and pleading. "What please? Haven't I already told you to marry that girl? She's in trouble. Can't you do this one thing for me? Can't you?" Ramesa said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Mama, you are asking me to get married. Is this some sort of doll's play?" Hadi asked, his voice laced with frustration and confusion. "Hadi, listen," Ramesa said, her voice firming up. "I'm only asking you to get married. If, in the future, you find her unworthy of being your life partner, you can divorce her. But for now, I need a relationship to take her with me. I have nothing to hold on to, by which I can take Masooma from her greedy uncle." Hadi's eyes widened in surprise. He had never considered marriage before, and the idea of entering into such a serious commitment so suddenly was overwhelming. "Mama," he began, his voice hesitant, "I don't even know her. How can I marry someone I've never met?" Ramesa sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. "I know it's a lot to ask, Hadi," she said, her voice filled with sadness, "but I'm begging you. Masooma is a good girl. She's kind, intelligent, and beautiful. She deserves a better life than the one she's living now." Then came the moment when Hadi had to bow down to his mother's persistence. He got married, but the very next day, without informing anyone, he left for the USA. Ramesa was saddened by Hadi's abrupt departure, but she found solace in the fact that she had brought Masooma with her to Dhaka after the wedding.